Okay, then great. So recall that this is just a 30. Well, first of all, I'm going to say welcome to everybody who's able to call in now or call up this video on demand. We will place it on the agenda for the week. Ted sends his regrets. Ted Weidner, my colleague. Well, that's just as I say it. There's Ted right there. So we can wait a minute until he gets on.
Why would you wait another minute?
How the heck are you? How the heck are you, Ted?
Good, enjoying sunny weather.
Yeah, it's a little warm here. That's one of the reasons I'm not out on campus right now. And in addition to the fact that the students are here, being very busy, and the heat, heat's, I don't know. We have what we call a design day today. Would that be fair to say, Jose?
That's right, 90 plus degree days.
Yeah, so I guess we should go hug our local wet bulb guy down in the mechanical department. In any case, on the call right now, which we started recording, there's some disclaimers I wanted to put out here before we get started. As I say, this is just an update. There's a lot of detail we normally need to get into on these proposals. Or on the issues. We have breakout sessions, so this is scheduled near the ends of the week so that we don't take premium time. Everyone on the call doesn't mind being on being identified as being on the call. I think we all know each other, but I'm going to ask Bob to. Most of us know each other. I'm going to ask Bob from Ohio State to tell us a little something about what he does down there. So, Bob, you have the floor. Do you want to tell us? Oh, looks like we have Ryan coming along also. All right, so we'll have a jolly crowd here, the usual suspects. And hi, Ryan.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys?
No complaints, that's what I hear. So what we're going to do, we all know each other. Bob, do you want to tell us what you do down there at Ohio State, please?
I'm a staff electrical engineer, work in facilities, design and construction. I'm on the tech services team.
So is your work principally within the buildings? Do you do work outside on the medium voltage grid? What a little more detail.
I'm sorry, it's more on the 480 and lower side. I do get into site lighting and okay. Mostly the power to the buildings and what goes on in the buildings.
What is Ohio State distributing at there? I'm assuming you're purchasing, maybe co-generating. I used to know, frankly. I probably could, if I thought harder, I could probably remember. But what does your medium voltage system look like there, Bob?
We buy a 138, but we distribute around campus at 13.2 kV.
And you're co-generating also, are you not?
No, we're not.
Okay, I thought you were. Well, in any case. Well, Bob, I'm going to let Ted, Ryan, and Jose introduce themselves to you briefly. Ted, you want to start?
Oh, I am now out of the active facilities business, and I am a professor of practice at Purdue, teaching about facilities.
Okay.
Ryan?
I'm an electrical engineer at Oakland University for this discussion, and I do pretty much all of it. We're a little bit smaller than Ohio State and Michigan, so we have one guy.
Jose?
Yeah, I'm Jose Meijer with Peter Basso Associates, principal and electrical engineer with the firm, and I work with Mike and Ryan.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen. Another one of my declarations here is that these are not necessarily APPA, MAPPA, or APPA positions. I do hold APPA's vote. I am fairly orthodox to try to gather consensus. This is one form where we'll do it. It was principally supposed to be for management, but we actually do have teleconferences every other week, and I'm going to rely upon what the electrical people do every other week. Again, it's a 30-minute teleconference where we work through a lot of the nuts and bolts of what we'd like to see in our electrical documents. So you're going to see me flipping between the MAPPA, which is intended to be kind of a management familiarity with what we're doing, but we'll also drill down a lot more detail here. So this is really kind of a home site for gathering all the ideas that we have, So what I'd like you to see here is that we've started to mark up. You're not going to see the final documents as they go out, but there's some areas here where we are looking at some concepts that may be of interest to management, but since we don't have a lot of management here, I think my colleagues might want to know that there's an area here where some of our European colleagues have said that we could probably challenge the 80% rule, or in other words, 125% rule. This is a rule that goes back to a time possibly earlier in the 1900s, and I have to tell you, this is almost law by Moses. That I grew up, my career is more or less you consider the 125% continuous load as being one of your design canons. Well, our European colleagues don't see it that way, and they've been vocal in the IEEE meetings about saying, you know, you could probably take a lot of that stuff back, but of course you have to coordinate your thermal elements, the wires, the termination details. So we'll probably be looking at this, and we'll probably have enough of a concept to start to challenge the committee and make them think harder about how we might scale this. And so I'm going to stop talking there, and I'm assuming that Jose and Ryan have not fallen off their chair at the idea that we would challenge the 80% rule. Any thoughts, guys? No, you can't believe what we're doing. Yeah, I'll tell you. Let me tell you who the brainchild of this is. So let's our buddy Giuseppe. Giuseppe Parisi, let's see, Parisi, Giuseppe, where can I get him? And I would have to tell you that, where is he, Parisi? Where's our Professor Giuseppe? He is the, I never get it right, Giuseppe, what happened? Where's our buddy here? I thought maybe he stopped his account, by gosh. Anyway, here's his son, and he is a functionary in the Italian electrical code, and he's been fairly vocal and has done quite a bit of work in that area. So that's one issue that we'd like to approach. And because we have a October, let's see, we have two deadlines. The paper deadline is October 3rd, but the deadline for submitting in this environment is November 7th. So we would be going after, we would be looking at 21019, which is up here, and we would be adding things. Let's see if anybody's done anything. One thing I wanted my electrical colleagues to know is that this is the first year, and this will be important to you, Ryan, this is the first year that anybody has used this system and for marking up documents. So for example here, we have never in the past been able to see what other people have proposed while we wanted to propose something. So for example, this is where we're probably going to try to go. But here, this is oops, looks it was withdrawn by the submitter. Sorry about that. Looks like the guy changed their mind. But this is one of the advantages. You'll see that the price we pay for seeing what others are proposing in real time is that it's hard for us to understand what the committee decided. And Ted, I've set aside a special session on that NFPA 350 session standard that we were working on, so that the NFPA can see itself how difficult it is to see what the committee's decision is. So that's a separate. That's related to what I'm showing you on the screen here, because there is a great improvement here, but we're paying for a price, and we don't see all the transparency in what the committee does. So we can see what other people are doing, but we can't see what the committee has decided. So Without belaboring that subject, one of the other issues there is dealing with the allowable lighting. Right now, this is the canon. It's been the canon for generations. Another case where we're going to be approaching and asking, let's go to 210.12. Is that our, where's our 210? Let's go up here. Where's our table? Oh, excuse me, 220.12, I'm sorry. That's the table that requires electrical engineers to size their lighting supply circuits according to, here we go, there we go. So this is one of those, again, standard canonical tables that you use. There are two areas of interest here. One is that we're not sure if this statement here for the square footage in our industry, if this is granular enough. We think classrooms, the way the concepts track in the international building codes, might be more granular than this. So we might say K-12 schools, are they different than business occupancies? So you can see, Ted, for example, and I know, Ted, you're sensitive to what the building codes say about occupancy types. This would be a type E type of facility, but in higher ed we have mostly business. And so we would be, at the moment, they're asking us to size our supply circuits at 3 VA per square foot, at 3 watts per square foot. Everybody knows that we've never seen that. So what we were able to do, this is what our committee did, is we said, well, look, if you don't like what you see here, as long as these conditions are made, so this is what I'll call the U of M driven APPA change, you may scale your lighting design to what the energy code, that's IECC or ASHRAE 90.1 or some variant of it, allows you to do. So any thoughts, Ted? I guess I'm going to look at you because we think that universities' square footage might be different than schools, and they might be different than office buildings. Office buildings might be something business or mercantile. Do you think, for the when electrical engineers use this, does this correlate enough with the building code, do you think?
Well, it might correlate with the building code, but it doesn't make any sense. It's way oversizing for the load that even in the most overlit situations would be needed.
Well, that's our thesis, and that's why we did this up here. That's why we did this up here.
But I'm confused, Mike. How do you have in the code you can choose this standard or this standard, and they're really different from each other, and they're using different metrics when you get right down to it.
Since Ryan, it's a jump ball for Ryan or Jose, so I can take a drink of water. Do you want to explain that to Ted?
Ryan, you want to jump in, or?
There's no explanation. That's what I thought.
There's no explanation. I don't know. Jose, you got any thoughts? Go ahead, man.
I'm drawing a blank, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so this is what we have in front of us is the default rules. If you're going to design a new building, and those are these articles that we've written in the different trade magazines and the academic journals about this is what designers use. In the case of where's banks.
I mean, basically, Mike, this is what we've been battling for the last year or so. It's the numbers off the NEC are just nowhere near to what the current, like the ASHRAE requirements are. In reality, the tables are obsolete, and they're not caught up to what ASHRAE requires us to design to, which is the lower watts per square foot. Like for a school, it's shown as 3 watts per square foot. Well, in reality, the current ASHRAE 2007 is 1.2 watts per square foot, and the 2010 is actually going to go down to 0.99 watts per square foot. So, I mean, in essence, these tables are obsolete and they need to be brought back to what the current ASHRAE energy standards are?
Well, believe it or not, there are organizations and buildings that are being built that ignore ASHRAE, but we know that nobody ever saw this anyway. Our data has told us. So Ted, to familiarize you more with what we've done, we've actually, the new language that we put in was right here, and this says that you may take exceptions to this table if there is an energy, if the energy code, where does it say here? Provided there's an energy code at the value specified the energy code. So what this does, what this does is this says their office building, let's say office building, that means that this 3.5 watts per square foot, remember lighting is about 40% of a building's load, and you're able to take nearly over 2/3 of it off. So that really changes things. What I'm asking here as an architect is that I don't believe that office buildings is recognized in the International Building Code. I like to look for a way to get office buildings and schools, and these are two significant loads here, defined more granularly. Do we say K-12 schools? Do we say colleges, universities? Do we go back and say, let's use the business occupancy classes of the ICC?
All right, well, your architect is going to tell you what, whether you're designing to a school or an office building, and the architect is sometimes, not always, but sometimes told by the owner what standard they're supposed to design to. Sophisticated owners, like those of us on the call, we know what to tell the designers. But when you get to a K-12 school, telling them that they have to design to 3 watts a square foot for lighting alone, boy, you're eating up a lot of copper or aluminum, whatever material you want to use, for no good reason, because if they even get to 0.99 watts per square foot, they'll still be consuming a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we're
is how do you going to swing that though, gentlemen? I mean, the reality is you put an exception in there, but the table is what's out in front, and what you're really suggesting is that you're going to walk into a room with Jose's of the world and suggest to him that he's going to make the exception, and make sure you're right, Jose, because. But yeah, the code says all this stuff, and then there's this really fine print for an exception, and you want the engineer to take the risk.
Right, that was my question, essentially. Thank you for articulating it in that way.
But that's the point. Wouldn't we want to change the tables and get rid of the exception?
Because the table then gives the architect the clear to go to say, I did it to code, and that gives him the walk away, versus saying, I took an exception to the code because I have an energy monitoring system, and then somebody comes back and says, well, I don't have enough power in my building, you should have followed the NEC's table. And that's sort of the catch-22 with an exception versus having it as the norm.
Right, so that's, okay, so you know exactly what I'm driving at. So I want you guys to look at this and look what the IBC tells architects are looking at. They define these, see this could be auditoriums, lecture halls, business group, could be, generally I think colleges and universities, is that right? Is that right, Ted? College and universities are generally thought of as business groups?
Business or institutional, yeah.
Or institutional, and then there's educational. So I'm looking at these occupancy classes, and I'm thinking between assembly, business, educational, and institutional, I'd like those concepts to track better in here. It's a different...
Absolutely. The NEC ought to be parallel to the ICC, for starters.
Okay, good. So that's one of the core proposals we're going to make. We have to move on to other issues, but I thought this one would be in fairly clear relief. We got an exception here. We're very happy about that, and that's huge for us. But we want to make it what I'll call bright line and start beating living daylights out of this table in terms of the type of occupancy. and then start challenging them and just come up with some wild-ass numbers. We've done that, have we not? We just threw 1 watt a square foot at them. Our data is telling us we can actually do that. Now remember that NFPA is a fire safety organization, and sustainability is not their core concern. But when we were able to make the argument that these higher values here were causing transformers to be sized twice as large as they needed to be, then it became a safety hazard in terms of incident energy. And that's what really pulled this one off. That's what made this possible. So there's a lot of documentation on that one. I'm sorry, guys, we are at 2:21. I'm glad you get this because it is a very important issue. It's hundreds of millions of dollars for us, and it's worth going after. So lighting controls, I won't go. In fact, I'm going to try to. These are very similar. I believe that we could probably tighten up our language here, guys. So one of the proposals I would like to suggest is that we might want to get a little bit more granular about what a power monitoring system needs to be. We have manufacturers saying that you have to have breakers, controllable breakers, when actually you can get away with just a controlled transformer. And we made that in some of our papers, and a lot of papers aren't being read or applied. So we might want to get a little more, create a little bit of noise, a larger discussion about what this might mean. So branch circuits and feeders, the 80% rule. There's another one here, and I'm trying to charm everybody into this. We're trying to. I was hoping Ryan would fall on his sword on this one for us. How you feeling there, Ryan? You think you could propose this and still keep your job?
Oh yeah, my job's not in jeopardy.
I'm just
not
kidding.
At all.
Little levity here on Friday afternoon. Okay, so
yeah.
We need to start hammering this out separately. Bob, what do you think about all the stuff that we're doing? You've been kind of quiet and sitting back there. Your thoughts on this?
Oh.
Okay.
Put some thought into it at different points, but really don't have any general say one way or the other.
Okay, so if we go to 22014, right now we have a default of 180 VA. If you look at the way 22014 is written, you can see you see the retail industry coming in here trying to get exceptions to that one. You see the banking industry trying to get exceptions for them. I believe we even have, other than dwelling units, let's see, we have a number of industries that have come in here and tried to make exceptions to the 180 VA outlet rule. And I would argue that that we could probably get that. I'm sorry, guys, I've been whipping around too much here. I'm looking for the farm load one. Suffice to say, all the other industries, restaurant industry, have all been looking for exceptions to this rule for to how you size your power outlet circuits. Okay, so now you are seeing the restaurant industry come in here. Okay, so we're going to work on not just lighting, but we're going to look on power. So let's get us back to our agenda. And what else did we have here? Supervised industrial installation. That might be where we land because we can't cover everything. So this is kind of a general purpose statement about exceptions that you might be able to take based upon conditions of supervision and maintenance. So what I'm trying to drive at here, and this is the overcurrent section. We're not in 220 anymore. If we go up to 242, it says that you can do certain things if you have a qualified industrial supervised installation. You can avoid certain types of overcurrent protection or even the sizes of transformers. And we think that in many campuses that they are regarded. I think a lot of our larger campuses, Ohio State for one, has electricians that are around or at least available, and that we might consider a campus electric shop as being every bit as well supervised as a factory, and that might be a stretch, and I'm going to let Bob talk a bit about this. If you can make some comments about the type of staffing electrical staffing you have on your campus, I'll try to find the spot where we're going to try to make a change, or I'm going to recommend we make a change.
Hey, Mike,
You have to get going?
Run, so.
Yeah. Hey, okay, I'll send some markups for you, Jose, and let's try to work together. I'm very grateful for your time, Jose.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm going to have to take off too.
Are you? Okay, so we are, yeah, we are at 4 minutes. Okay, let me just introduce the idea, and the idea here is that we'll work with the notion of supervised industrial installation. When we do that, many benefits accrue, but we have to make the argument that we're as well managed as a production facility, and I'll try to make that point in the September. If you're Bob, you're always welcome to come to these. We do these 30-minute sessions also. I'll have something for people to look over, and what I like to do is simply put them on paper and put them in front of the committee. I especially like data when I make proposals to these committees. So if Ohio State has data on feeder and branch circuit loading, I'd be very interested in getting to that. So it looks to me that we are under our time constraint here, and I don't want to. I want to promise you the 30-minute teleconference. So that is the substance of what we plan to do on Chapter 2 alone in the NEC, and just that is a really significant amount of money, because we are changing the way building interior power systems would be designed, largely to get them back in line with the energy conservation objectives. Ted, thoughts? No? Okay. Ryan, any?
I have an off-topic question.
They're reasonable.
I have an off question for you guys.
Go ahead.
I have a question. So do you guys, and this isn't related to the code, but do you guys back up your data centers with separate generators? Or do you guys use centralized generators to back up your data centers?
For data centers, well, we have them, the standard design is to have them on site so that their mission is separate, and frankly their funding is separate, and when you try to move generators and make them work twice as hard or as often and pay for themselves, you get into financial problems with that, even though technically we can make them work. Ted, do you have a thought?
No, not on data centers.
Yeah.
I stay away from them if I can.
Okay. So if you want to talk, if you want to raise that here, there's probably this meeting is
attended. It's just a question because we have a guy before I came here sold a centralized generator system, and I'm telling them they need a dedicated generator for their data centers, but because every time we go to use the centralized one, it's not so great.
Okay. All right. Well, very often.
I just thought I'd ask because you guys were.
Well, for our athletic department, we have a 3.9, what I call the power system that I put in for our athletic campus is good for 3.9s. The data center may want 4 or 5 9s. So at that point, capitalization is really different as you go up the curves to the number of 9s you want. So, and of course, it's a different mission. It's not a life safety. Mine's a life safety mission. Yours is data security, and arguably, if you miss a few decimal points on the zeros, that might be worth more than a human life. Hard to say it that way, but well, we can talk more about it.
It may.
For some people, it may. That's right. So, okay, Bob, I'll put you on the list if you don't mind. You're welcome to call into these. There's a lot going across our plate on these, across our news feed, not news feed, our activity stream. We are coming up against the deadline for NEC, so if you have any original thoughts or any problems there, let me know. But again, I'll be pestering you for data. We do have a project with the NFPA Research Foundation, which is right here, and we're trying to make the we're trying to, where is that? Right. This is one that the NFPA Research Foundation is sponsoring, and if you're able to contribute data to it, I'd be very grateful. I can talk to you separately about that. So this is what will be informing a lot of the proposals that we just talked about. So we're at 2:30, guys. The next teleconference obviously will probably is next week. And what do we have going on for next week? Ted, you and I are going to try to put things in order and get priority rankings. We can do that at any time, and it can actually be an on-demand submission to the MAPPA Executive Board. Rich may well be able to do some presenting for us at that point. So I'll talk to you separately about that.
Okay.
Anything else, guys?
Have a great weekend,
Nope.
everybody.
Great. We'll do
Thanks,
that.
guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.